It's a rough life. Living up to Lassie, it's a rough life. Trying to be so classy when I'm going through the garbage for a midday snack. Knowing I'm in trouble when the folks get back. It's a rough life. When fleas live on your belly, it's a rough life. When people call you smelly, I'm developing a complex. I might need a shrink. They blame me every time that something starts to stink. It's a rough life. Begging for a cookie is a rough life. Never getting nookie. They chase me from the kitchen when I start to beg. They think that I'm perverted when I hug their leg.
Hi, welcome to the show. My name is Jesse Goldberg, and my guest today is Pete Abeles, but it's spelled abeles.
That's correct.
Right, but it's Abeles.
It's Abeles.
But I'm told to call you Otto.
That's right.
Right? So why am I calling you Otto now?
That's my middle name.
Otto is your middle name.
Yes.
So tell me about yourself, and where are you from?
I was born in Vienna, Austria. I grew up in Chicago.
Right.
And then I moved to Maryland, and now I live half a year in Maryland and half a year in Naples, Florida.
Naples, Florida. So why you're here to tell us about your escape from the Holocaust, right?
Yes.
So what happened? Tell us. Start right there.
In 1938, Hitler marched into Vienna, and I was standing at the window looking out.
And how old were you in 1938?
7.
7. So you were born in 1931.
That's correct.
What day?
July 27th.
Man, you're older than Mickey Mantle was.
Is that right?
Yeah, Mickey Mantle was born October 20th. Everybody should know that, right?
Right.
Okay. Remember Mickey Mantle, right?
Oh, of course.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
Right.
So Hitler came, and I was looking out the window, and they had loudspeakers on all the lampposts, and he was yelling, screaming, and the people across the street started hanging Nazi flags out the window. Because
they were taking over Austria.
Yes, yes.
Right.
And the neighbors that we thought we knew, we didn't know, because they turned Nazi when he came in.
Now, you were Jewish.
Yes.
Right? So you still are Jewish? Right?
Yes.
Okay. So your neighbors, were they Jewish too?
Well, there were some Jewish neighbors.
Right.
But the people that were excited about it, of course, weren't Jewish.
Right, and they were excited because they were excited.
Well, they thought it was great that Hitler took over.
Right.
And the first key thing that happened was that about 3 months after they took over, they came into my father's business, asked for the keys and the combination to the safe, and threw him out the door. And
what was his business?
He was in the wholesale shoe business.
Okay.
And he had to walk home. They took the cars and everything. The second bad incident was the Nazis caught my mother on the street and made her take her coat off and scrub the street.
How'd they know she was Jewish?
We had to wear...
your armbands or something? Right.
And she became so traumatized by that she didn't go out of the house for months and months. And one day she decided that she wanted me to commit suicide with her. And we were home alone, and she forced me to go into the kitchen, and she opened the oven door and turned on the gas, and just then my grandmother walked in and saw what was happening and stopped it. But it was very traumatic.
What was the ratio of Jews to other people in Austria in that time?
I can't answer that.
You don't know that, but you were 7 years old. You have pretty vivid memories for 7 years old.
Yeah, I don't know what I ate for lunch though today.
Right, but you remember 7 years, right? So what happened after that?
Well, my father had no income.
Right.
And so we had to start selling things to live. And my grandmother would come over, and she would go to the Jewish Community Center and pick up food for us. And my father was leery of going out in the street because he was 6'2" and had blue eyes. And Jews weren't supposed to be tall and have blue eyes. And one day they came knocked on the door, 3 SS men. And my mother opened the door and they asked for money. And she said, my husband handles the finances. So they said, where is he? She said, he's out. They said, we'll wait. And he came in, sat down, and waited for my father to come home.
Who, some Nazi?
3 SS men.
3 SS, okay.
Yeah. And I was standing by the window, and I saw him coming down the street, and I wanted to warn him, but I couldn't. And when he came in and saw the situation, he got frightened, of course. And when they saw that he had blue eyes and was tall, they decided they wanted to take him and show him to their captain. And they took him away. And he didn't come home for like 24 hours. In the meanwhile, my mother was pacing up and down. We were all worried about it. And she remembered a friend that we had that was in the Nazi party that they knew. She called him. And he said, don't ever call me again, but I'll help you. So the next day, my father came home. His clothes were in shreds. He was beaten almost to death. And he sat down and he said, we'll never talk about this again. And then he realized that we had to leave. So he thought about it, and he decided, he went to the library in Vienna and got a phone book from Chicago. I don't know why he picked Chicago. And he looked in the phone book, and he saw the name Abeles. There was 2 Abeles listed in the phone book.
Right.
The same spelling, not related. And so he wrote a letter to them that if they didn't sponsor us, we would all die. Well, it happened that one of the Abeles owned a company called the Form Fit Company, which is now known as Genesco. So he was financially able to sponsor.
Were they related to you in any way?
No, none.
You're just
none.
doing a good deed.
Well, they were aghast because they couldn't imagine
Right.
because people in America really didn't know.
When they sponsored you, you were able to leave?
They sponsored us, and it became a long process. We had to get an exit visa. We had to go down and have a physical. We had to take a mental exam. And eventually, the papers came and we could leave.
When did they start bringing people to concentration camps?
Probably it started in 1939.
1939?
And the reason I know that is my grandmother couldn't come with us at that time. She had to stay. And she would go down to the train station and see her friends off as they were loading them into boxcars.
Oh, boy.
And, but at that time, she was fortunate. My father had already obtained an exit visa for her.
So you got your grandmother out?
She came out in 1940, and
Wow.
she had to come through Spain. The family, my brother, my mother and father, we caught the last boat to leave Rotterdam before the Nazis overran Rotterdam.
What, did you have other relatives that didn't make it out?
Not that we know of.
Right.
Not that we know of. We had friends that we didn't, and my grandmother had friends that she saw being shipped off.
Because my grandmother was from Austria also.
Oh, is that right?
Right, but they came here in the early 1900s, but her family stayed, and then all through the 30s they couldn't, well, the 40s they couldn't find their family, and I guess they must have got wiped out.
Yeah, possible.
Yeah,
For
right. They kept looking for them, but they couldn't find them. So then what happened? You moved. You came to Chicago.
we came to New York.
Could you speak English then?
No, none of us. Well, I had an English governess, so I spoke a little English, but not American English.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
I had an older brother.
Did he come with you too?
Yes.
Okay.
It was my older brother and myself and my parents. But my mother decided that she wouldn't leave without taking some of her prized possessions. And my father said, you can't do that. They put a law out that you couldn't take anything with you. She said, if I can't take it, I'm not going. So my father got in touch with a smuggler who came to the house, and he put a yellow tape on one suitcase. And he said, they won't open this.
Why wouldn't they open it?
Because there was a yellow tape with the Nazi insignia on it.
Oh, and so you fooled them.
And my father paid them, and we went on a train, and every time they came to inspect the baggage, we were scared they were going to open that suitcase. Then we would have all been dead.
Okay, so you got here through a boat, right?
We got a boat from Rotterdam.
And you landed where?
In New York.
So did you see the Statue of Liberty?
Yes, we did.
Would that, when you saw the Statue of Liberty for the first time, was it like everybody says, everybody was silent when they came
Oh,
by?
it's very exciting. You know,
Were people cheering, or were they just quiet?
Everybody was cheering, and it was awesome.
So did they take you to Ellis Island?
There was no more Ellis Island.
There was no more Ellis Island?
No.
What did they do then?
We just walked off the boat, and we were in New York. And
that was it?
Then some friends met us. You know, we were processed out. But there's a funny story connected with the boat. We were assigned a first-class cabin. So my mother decided, she was a kind of a nasty woman anyway, she decided that they did this because of her former position. But my brother later told me when we got older, they did it alphabetically, and some famous banker named, his name started with a Z, he was probably in the hold of the boat. So it wasn't because of her standing.
Oh, because you were the first one in.
Right, first one in.
So your parents got here, and somehow you got to Chicago. How'd you do that? How'd you get
there? We took a train to Chicago.
A train to Chicago.
And when we got to Chicago,
did Mr. Abeles meet you there?
Yeah, both families met us, and my father had $10 left. And before he left,
$10 American money?
$10 American money. Yeah.
Okay.
And before he left, he and my mother went to the Jewish Community Center, and he learned how to make gloves, leather gloves. And she learned how to sew, because he figured, not knowing the language, it would be hard to get a job. So they put us in a one-room apartment with bed bugs.
Bed bugs. They couldn't speak English either, I guess, right?
Nobody.
Did they speak Yiddish?
No.
No, but Yiddish is like Austrian, sort of.
It is, yeah.
Is Austrian a language? Is that a language?
It's German.
It's German, okay.
German, but my mother put up her nose against Yiddish. She didn't.
All right, so you go to Chicago, and then your father got a job making gloves, and your mother got a job?
Well, he didn't get a job. He did it at home. And
okay.
He went out and went from door to door, the friends of our sponsors, and he made drawings and sold gloves.
Oh, he was in his own business.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay, and your mother did
she sold. And that's the first time in her life she had ever done anything, because she had always had servants. But she did sew.
So you were kind of rich in Austria?
Yes.
Yeah, because you had all that, you think one of the reasons you got out is because you had more money than other people?
No, we didn't have any money.
I mean, in Austria?
No.
No? Not at all?
We got out because of my father's plan.
With the phone book in
the
Chicago.
The phone book.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so you got to here Chicago, and then you were 7 or something like that. You went to school, right?
About 3 days after we got to Chicago, my father announced, today we go to school. And when he announced something, we did it. So
You go to public schools?
I went to public schools. My mother dressed me in black velvet short pants and a button-down blouse with buttons and the pants attached to the blouse. And she put a hairpin in my hair because the hair was going in my eyes, and that's how we arrived. It was really funny, the three of us walking down the street.
So when you didn't speak any English, how'd you learn anything?
Well, we picked it up pretty fast in school.
Right. Your brother was how much older than you?
He was 5 years older.
Okay. So did you go to Chicago schools all the way through?
Yes. We both went to the University of Chicago.
University of Chicago?
Yes.
You mean the college?
Yes. After, as time went on.
Okay. What did you do there?
I studied the liberal arts, and my brother became a world-renowned scientist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is he still alive?
No, he died in 2000 of Parkinson's. His last job, he was head of biochemistry at Brandeis University.
Germans didn't know what they were doing. They're throwing Jews out of the country.
Yeah, they killed a lot of educated people.
Yeah. So what do you think now when you see this guy Ahmadinejad, this Iranian guy, saying the Holocaust never happened?
Well, I can tell them.
Right.
It happened, I guarantee you.
But why, why through all the years do people not like Jews? Why is that? I don't get it. I'm a likable guy. You're a likable guy.
I hope so.
Yeah, so why don't they like,
Well,
what's
I think
the deal?
maybe Jews are a little bit more industrious.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. Anyway, so you went through, and then what did you do as a work for your lifetime?
Well, I worked. When I graduated from high school, I had a few jobs, and then when it came time for me to get drafted for the Korean War, I decided to volunteer for the Air Force.
Oh, you were in the Air Force?
I was in the Air Force 4 years.
Oh, okay.
And my brother, when he graduated from high school, he got the highest score ever recorded in the Army equivalency test. And so they put him in the OSS. And his first job with the OSS was he got to France just as the war ended. His first job was to interrogate Germans to see if they were Nazis.
Oh, that's a good job.
And he wrote us a letter one day. He was interrogating a man, and they all tried to alibi that they knew Jews, and that's why they weren't Nazis. This guy said, if you could find an Ernst Abels, he could vouch for me, not realizing that he was talking to Ernst Abels' son.
Oh, really? Somebody said that.
And my brother recognized the name. That was one of the guys that came in and took his business.
Oh.
So at the end of the letter, he said, oh, by the way, I put the bastard in jail.
You know, it's hard to believe that it was only 70 years ago. It was only one generation ago that happened. It's not like it can't happen again.
It can happen again.
Yeah, it can happen
Absolutely.
again. People are evil.
They are.
They are. They are. Nazis are bad guys. Definitely bad guys. We're going to talk about your books now. You wrote a couple books, right? What was the first one? This is not the first one, right?
No, that's the second one.
What was the first one called?
The first book was called Otto the Boy at the Window.
Out of the Boy at the Window. What is that supposed to be?
Well, it's sort of the story of my life, and the...
Oh, the boy at the window looking out the window for
that's my
Nazis.
habit.
Right.
Today I even do this. And the story is the Holocaust is in the background, but the real story is the relationship that I had with my abusive parents.
Abusive parents?
Very abusive.
What'd they do to you? It's not like they got you out of
Well, they were just cruel. I mean, it was child abuse. And it didn't change when we got to America. My mother was just as abusive, and my father, he really only did her bidding.
When did they die?
My mother died at 99, living alone in New York.
Really? Alone at 99?
Yeah, she was still playing bridge twice a week.
Wow, good for her.
And my father died about 15 years before that of prostate cancer.
Okay, and so that was about that. And what was the second book about that? Who wrote the first book? You wrote somebody else?
Tom Hicks and I wrote the first book.
Tom Hicks wrote, and you wrote the first
Yeah,
book.
I came when I came home from the funeral. I called Tom Hicks, and I told him I was upset because I didn't feel anything at the funeral. I felt no remorse, and I want to write a book because I knew Tom had written books before. So Tom said, I'll only help you if you tell the whole truth and everything. And that's what we did. We told the whole...
The Boy at the Window.
Yep.
And when did you write that book?
That was in the year 2000.
Okay, now you got another book here called Otto, the Man at the Wheel, which I'm going to hold up.
Right.
80 long years to learn 40 short lessons.
I'm a slow learner.
Right now, so who's this other guy, Rodney Pickle?
Rodney Pickle is the...
Let me hold that up.
Is the other author. There was three of us that wrote this book.
Is that the guy right there?
Yes.
Oh, they're sitting in the audience.
The good-looking guy with the glasses.
That's me. Who's that guy over there? Okay, we got it. All right, so what's this one about now?
It's about lessons I learned.
Give me one lesson.
One
So
lesson.
stop whining, it says on the cover.
Oh, I hate whining.
That's what I do all my life, though, is whine.
A good lesson.
What's the Jewish woman's favorite wine?
I don't know.
I want to go to Florida. I want to go to Florida.
That's right.
It's an old joke. Never mind.
I'll tell you one story. A gangster helped me.
A gangster?
A gangster.
Must have been Italian.
When I decided to go to college, my father said I'm not going to pay for it. So I went down to Checker Cab Employment Office in Chicago, filled out the papers to drive a cab. I figured I'd go to school a day and drive the cab at night. And when I finished filling out the papers, she said, well, it'll be $60. Well, to me, that could have been $1,000.
Right.
I had no money. And I'm standing there complaining to her I had no money. And this guy comes walking in, very dapperly dressed, and he must have overheard it. And he reached in his pocket and pulled out a roll of bills and handed me $60. He said, here, kid, pay me back out of your first paycheck. And he walked away. The woman said to me, do you know who that was? I said, no. She said, that's Joey Glimko, head of the taxi cab union. And later on, I found out that he was one of the biggest gangsters in Chicago. So I made sure with my first pay, I went back and took the $60.
What do you say when you get back? Did you remember?
Well, he wasn't there. I just left it for him.
Oh.
But the lady told me that if I didn't pay him back, they'd come and make my legs. So
really?
that's what they used to do when it was voting time. They'd come with a billy club. Who are you going to vote for?
Hey, they still do it in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, a lot of people aren't even alive are voting in Chicago.
Sure.
So when did you write this book?
We just finished it about September.
Oh, okay. Do you have a website or something?
Yes, ottothebook.com.
ottothebook.com. Okay, we'll put that up underneath the thing. So how did you hook up with Kinky Friedman?
Well, Tom and I have always admired him. He's a special guy. So one day we decided we were going to call him.
Just called him on the phone?
I called him, and one of his people answered.
He's got people?
That worked for him. And I told him that we would like Kinky to come to Nashville and do a book signing with us. And they said they would, and they told me what it would cost, and we finished the negotiation, and he came, and we liked each other. Tom and I and Kinky got along real well, and so we've done 3 or 4 other book signings with him, and we consider him a good friend now.
Yeah.
So he's a neat guy.
Yeah, I saw him. You know, when I watch Kinky play, it's like, stop singing and talk, because I like to hear him. You know, I like his banter. You know, he keeps talking.
I always envy people that love their parents.
Oh, really?
I never had that luxury.
Oh man, I had great parents. I really did.
You're lucky.
Yeah, yeah. So, so what's next for you? You going back to Maryland?
We're going back to Maryland May 7th. I'm flying home to the Florida tomorrow, and then we're going home for Mother's Day.
Okay.
To be with
so do you have family and kids and stuff?
We have 11 grandchildren between us.
11? How many kids?
4.
4 kids? What do you mean between us?
Well,
You're married to the same?
it's a second marriage for all. So my wife had 3 girls and 5 kids, 3 girls, and I had a girl and a boy.
You had a girl and a boy. What do your girl and boy do now?
My son lives in Oregon, and it is a wine salesman, and he has 2 girls. My daughter lives in St. Louis, has 3 sons, and her husband is an anesthesiologist. And she's a lawyer, but she didn't practice very long.
Oh, okay. Okay. So do you tell them about your story about in Austria and all that?
Oh, yeah. Well, they all have books, and I talk about it all the time.
Right.
Because I think people need to know. Because when people my age die, there aren't going to be any more survivors.
Yeah, that's true.
So we can't forget.
Yeah, we can't forget. There's an expression they have for the Jewish people have an expression that says "never again." You know that expression?
Never
right?
again is right.
Never again.
Right.
You got to remember, if people start picking on you, fight back.
Right.
Don't just sit there and say, and just take it. Fight back. Hey, we better get going. My name is Jesse Goldberg. My guest is Otto Abeles.
Abeles.
Otto Abeles.
Peter Otto Abeles.
People Otto Abeles. And we'll be back again next week, another edition of the show. Okay. Why could I hear him the whole time?
Living up to Lassie, it's a rough life. Trying to be so classy when I'm going through the garbage for a midday snack. Knowing I'm in trouble when the folks get back. It's a rough life. When fleas live on your belly, it's a rough life. When people call you smelly, I'm developing a complex. I might need a shrink. They blame me every time that something starts to stink. It's a rough life. Begging for a cookie is a rough life. Never getting nookie.